Hi, I'm Doug Coe, Director of Product Marketing for our Cloud Products and Services here at Cohesity.
And my name is Teresa Miller. I'm the Director of Technology Advocacy. And today we are going to talk about a topic that I think sometimes isn't really spent enough time on. It's business email compromise. And even more so prolific in terms of this topic is how, if something gets through your email to the endpoint, how that can actually impact the larger picture of the enterprise. So let me break this down. So imagine that you are a user and you are working from your home, the office, a coffee shop, and you have an endpoint. Now, specifically in our scenario here, M365 is the product of choice for email as well as file sharing, right?
Yep.
We're using OneDrive, we're using SharePoint, but really this applies to any email system and any data that you might have. So you're this user and your organization has Outlook set up, it's connecting out to your M365 data. Also, you have some shared shares on SharePoint and some of your own personal ones on OneDrive. And so you're just working away. You're doing your thing. And the reality is that there's a little bit more to that, and that's the security landscape. So you might have tools in place to prevent bad stuff from getting in, malware, ransomware, any kind of bad actor. But the way that the security landscape has changed, it's really, really hard to stay in front of.
Okay.
Things can get in at any time. New stuff is released constantly, right? That's why we see ransomware, for example, in the news on a regular basis about organizations being attacked. So imagine that one of these bad actors makes its way to this single user's endpoint. Because there are connections back to enterprise data, right? M365, SharePoint, OneDrive, and maybe other things. Your enterprise becomes at risk. So that's something to kind of pause and take a thought on.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. So yeah, if you get infected as an end user, you can infect the enterprise as well too. So what are really some of the broader risks we should consider if that type of thing happens?
Right. So infection, first and foremost. Of course, you're going to have mechanisms to try and prevent that infection from happening, but to double click in on the risk, infection can spread into the enterprise from a client. The next risk is encryption. Now, this specifically is tied to ransomware. And we've seen ransomware have some pretty negative impacts. I mean, ransomware can take a company out of business. And so if you have it affect an endpoint that has access to other data, it can seed itself and it can sit idle. And then when it's time for it, time triggered for it to wake up, it can have major impact. So again, that enterprise level, and it can even impact your backups if you don't have the right settings in place. And then lastly, theft and exfiltration. So ransomware is another factor here. Oftentimes now ransomware is actually taking data before they lock it down and encrypt it. So that is really, really prolific to think about. So let's talk about M365 a little bit more.
Yep.
So ESG Research did a study recently, and they found that only 15% of organizations are able to recover M365 data.
Wow. That's pretty staggering if you think about it.
Yeah, so why do you think that is?
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, in some ways, it's not that surprising. Microsoft itself doesn't actually provide you with backups. It only provides you with capabilities of policy-based retention and file versioning for your OneDrive and SharePoint files. Number two is it's really not designed for recovering your data very quickly. They actually don't provide any SLAs around data recovery. So when you think about all the risks that you're seeing here, it's not really the best solution for you to address all the different things that could go wrong with malware or ransomware or any other bad actors. So when you think about a third-party solution, really the things you should look for are ensuring that it's able to provide you with fast and reliable recovery. So when you do have an infection, when you do have data that might be encrypted, you could recover that very quickly. Now, Teresa, you also mentioned that the criminals can go after your backup data as well, too. Mm-hmm. So with that, you really need to look at a feature called immutability, which is the ability to ensure that your backup data can't be tampered with or deleted or encrypted as well, too. And on top of that, you want to look at the ability to create separation, right? Separation from your production data, right, to your backup, which should be stored in a different location. And the last part, when we're really talking about all these bad actors and potential threats, right, you really need to look at the user behavior because they could go in and, as you say, compromise a user account. So you want to be able to detect any kind of odd behaviors, like users trying to download a bunch of data, users trying to share data or spread data across domains where they're not supposed to. So, I think these are some of the key capabilities. What do you think is really the key takeaway for organizations really to try to thwart some of these threats that are out there today?
Yeah, so my key takeaways would be, first and foremost, if you're leveraging native capabilities, the ones that Doug shared, make sure you test to see if you're really going to get what you need, especially knowing now that there's no recovery SLA. Yeah. That in itself might be enough to take a look at third party. But also really keep in mind, too, that what you're getting there isn't actual backups. So you really need to look at this from the business perspective. And if neither of those things meet your business requirements, then a third-party option like Cohesity to protect that data so that you can recover it is critical.